Boy, oh boy, just when I thought Absolute Batman couldn't get any crazier or further away from what we usually know as Batman, it does so here, with an introduction of an all-new villain, more dangerous and more horrifying than ever. But yeah, welcome back to The Hero Informer. This is AJ, and if you need to be caught up about everything previously with Absolute Batman, I'll leave a link to a full video and full series of the entire first arc with Batman versus Black Mask and the party animals. But here we not only get to see the fallout in just how crazy Gotham has changed, but the introduction of a threat possibly more dangerous and horrifying than Black Mask and his party animals ever posed. But for now, we pick up in the past where we see a little bit of a backstory for a very important person that we'll get to a little bit later on. With here, it follows a little kid named Victor going on with his father and parents for an exploration as they go to discover and learn more about glaciers, ice, which kind of seems random, but believe me, it'll wrap full circle towards the end. Moreover, as we move back over to present day Gotham, we see a little group of people almost having a memorial service for a lost friend. And these aren't just random civilians of Gotham, but very important people and possibly even villains inside of Batman's universe, as we have, Harvey Dent, Oswald Cobblepot, Edward Enigma, etc. All people who would normally be the villains and rogue gallery of Batman, mourning the loss of a previous friend, a new introduction and character of someone named Matchbox. Now Matches Malone, as we will later find out his name is, he isn't really a new or an original character per se, but here he is completely different than what he was before. Before, he was a really old, obscure character in the early stories of Batman that really has no real connection to what he is now. All you really need to know about him, he was just another friend in the friend group all the other iconic Batman villains are in now, that they all grew up with. But as they go on to mourn the death, there's a couple things to note. One, his death wasn't a natural occurrence, it was a tragedy, with no one really knowing the full details about what exactly happened to him, or who even was the last person who saw him. Or at least they didn't, until we see Bruce Wayne, Batman, Absolute Batman, finally arrive and say he was the last person to see him personally, in which we see exactly that. Moving back a week ago, we see Bruce Wayne walking the now almost dystopian police state of Gotham, as he even goes on to monologue and say, "The city, Gotham, feels strange. The streets look less familiar every day. For about the past month, ever since the Black Mask incident, the city has been under martial law to quote-unquote ensure the people's safety from threats like the Batman." So essentially, with the scare of Black Mask and all the other stuff, vigilante work and the people getting access to the party animals, the government, military, whatever, has essentially shut Batman down. He hasn't been out since. And of course, Batman here is still healing from almost dying, trying to defeat the Black Mask and stop his entire plan and threat. Even Alfred, who he is working with now, has told Batman to lay low, hang up the mask and cowl for a bit, go back to work, be a normal citizen for a little bit, lay low until this all blows over. But as Batman goes on to say, there is no work. All the city's construction projects have been halted. Something is happening, I can feel it. Like all of this is all part of some bigger campaign. Something too big to see from the ground. Whatever it is though, I can't shake the feeling that it all comes back to that place. A couple things to note, and that's pretty obvious, if you use context clues. This place, simply named Ark M, is definitely supposed to be this universe's stand-in for Arkham, as an Arkham Asylum. And with Bruce even going on to say that the crew building this entire place is private, some company named JK. Now again, using context clues and just connecting the pieces, this JK company could quite obviously be in reference to the Joker himself, who we have finally seen revealed in the previous issue in Ark. Now what is he up to, what is he planning to do with Gotham as a whole? We don't exactly know yet. The only thing we do know is Batman is in for one heck of a ride going forward, as because he's now determined that he wants answers, and the only way to get those answers is being on the inside of this little Ark M project. So for that, he needs to meet up with someone that can get him on the inside, as he finally meets with Matches Malone, as because much like the other friends in Batman's group, each of them have a little area of expertise. Matches Malone here, as the comic goes on to say, he was big into running ID scams, super high-end stuff, barcodes, laser engraved. And the reason why they are meeting here now is that Bruce is hoping that Matches Malone could forge some paperwork and get him inside of the Ark M crew, which would have been simple enough, but even Bruce himself can sense something is off, sensing that Matches Malone here is very nervous, spooked, very skittish, as it all becomes clear in a second, as he goes on to confirm that yes, he got all the paperwork and did everything he was supposed to do for Bruce, but he did something even better. He has spent the last week of his life inside the crew itself, inside of the Ark M project, learning all the secrets, getting any information he can, mainly because of his own curiosity too, but Bruce Wayne doesn't see it this way. He gets a little angry about the fact, knowing how dangerous and suspicious everything is. He essentially goes on to chew him out for being so reckless. But as he goes on to give Bruce some of the information on the phone for him to see, quote unquote, doing this because not only he wanted to, but for the truth, we realize that the truth in this universe comes with grave consequences. As well here meeting with Bruce, for whatever reason, Matches Malone starts to look very ill, starts to sweat, until instantly he starts almost deteriorating from the inside out, blood pouring out of every orifice from his now destroyed and deteriorated skin, killing him on the spot. Leaving the only piece of evidence about what happened, what did he do, in the one phone and device he was carrying. As when we move back over to the present time with Bruce confronting all of the other friends he has here, he goes on to say whatever killed him used some kind of biological weapon. There were some leads on his phone, clues, and he promises that he is going to get and bring the person who did this to justice. But of course, if you remember the last issue in the whole arc from before, basically every one of Bruce's friends and everybody here knows he is also this vigilante Batman and what he is trying to do with the city. Yet, they still have some questions and stuff to ask him about, why is he doing all of this? Even going on to question and almost press Bruce about if he even was their friend in the first place. Each of them going on to say and ask, was it really you, Bruce Wayne, who trained with me, studied with me, slummed with me, or was it all just for Batman? And maybe this would have worked. Maybe Bruce would have opened up and actually explained and even let them in on his little Batman mission. But after seeing what just happened with Matches Malone, another childhood friend, he essentially has shut himself off. He doesn't want anyone in his personal life getting hurt with what he's trying to do with Batman. Because even when one of them goes on to say, it's time for us to deal with this, lay all the cards plain on the table, Bruce instead has made up his mind very clear about what he wants, going on to say, no, it's time for you to get out of my way so I can get back to work. That work in question being Batman himself back on patrol with a new mission in mind. Except now it's going to be very harder being Batman with the city under, total lockdown and martial law, and opposition in the form of the police waiting around every corner to take him down and take him out. Bruce even going on to say and draw the connections between the evidence he got from Match's phone and what he's trying to do now, going on to say Malone's phone didn't have much from Ark M, but what it had was bad. And at the end of the video, it had a list of names of researchers, doctors from around the world, and the only one with any connection to Gotham itself was a man named Dr. Victor Fries, a pioneer of crypto tech, and he started a company which actually has an office and headquarters down here in Midtown Gotham. And after doing a little bit of digging, Batman goes on to say, for some reason it pulls enough power from the grid to light up 10 city blocks. So Batman needs to make his way over there and figure out exactly why. But unfortunately, as I said, Gotham is now a little bit different. He can't just freely be Batman like he was before, as the now new military and martial law catches on to him using their now advanced technology and finally starts their first battle with his Batman. And yeah, to make things even more crazier, just then Alfred decides to call him over from London just to do a little bit of checking up on how he's doing and how he's recovering. Not only that, but it seems like Batman has gave Alfred a little bit of a mission, giving him some stuff to research, as he goes on to say, the case and information you asked for, no, it's not a biological weapon or even a virus, but it's bacterium. But the thing about this bacterium, there is no record of it anywhere. Alfred explaining this to Batman, all while of course he is trying his best to escape and not be turned into mincemeat by the martial law enforcers. Either way though, eventually Batman is able to escape and get to his main target, V-Corps, and investigate what exactly is going on and what more he can learn about this quote-unquote bacterium. But for this infiltration to work, he has to do a little bit of unorthodox methods, tossing the Batman persona away and going in as normal Bruce Wayne, an ordinary civilian. Well, maybe not in a civilian, he's going in as a city engineer coming to do a check, which is a pretty easy excuse to use and pull off, as this entire building and tower V-Corps is taking up so much of the city's power. And as Bruce is snooping around, just looking around the place, waiting for someone to introduce himself, we get that introduction in the form of a very suspicious man who becomes very important, who for now introduces himself as the director of V-Corps, of course buying the disguise and allowing Bruce to come in to quote-unquote check the power of this place. If anything, this director here actually seems happy for Bruce and his company. So Bruce, deciding to play up the disguise a little bit, goes on to engage in a little bit of small talk, asking if, Victor and Nora Fries, do they still oversee the things going on here? And when this quote-unquote director here goes on to say, yeah, they do, I guess you can say that, here we finally get to see everything switch. The entire story so far, which has been a decent, mystery, uncovering what has happened to Gotham and what is changing, turns into almost a horror, as we see exactly what happened to the previous owners of V-Corps, turned into more or less frozen mummified bodies. And this director here, we finally get to know who he is, as he is revealed to be their son, Victor Jr. And of course, Bruce not wanting to freak out immediately, he just plays it cool and just sits and listen. Listen as Victor Jr. here goes on to say, I know it might seem extreme, but this is what they would have wanted given their shared love of ice and their faith in the mission here. Going on to further explain what exactly their mission here is and what does that entail, he says his parents always believed ice held wonders, that it existed to preserve good things until the world is ready for them. Ice was Earth's grace, blue and pure. They of course funded their research with VCore, the company itself being some sort of program where rich and powerful people could preserve themselves frozen in ice until the cure for whatever was killing them or whatever was wrong with them actually existed in present time. So it's more or less kind of a Captain America situation, where they purposely freeze themselves for decades or even centuries until whatever answers or cures they are looking for actually exist in the present. But all the power here at VCore, it all goes to keeping the people alive, but frozen, waiting to be hopefully woken up one day, including his parents. Which at first, doesn't seem too sinister. These people are willingly putting themselves under an ice, but it starts to get a little more creepy and very suspicious, as we find out there's only ever been one successful revive. Him, Victor Jr. himself. Because when he was a boy, he was diagnosed with a rare terminal disorder. One, of course, that had no cure, and there was almost no saving him. So instead, his parents were convinced that one day his condition would be cured, but not in his lifetime, so instead the ice would save him. And while this is happening, while he was going on to yap about his life experiences and everything, Bruce Wayne, under the disguise here, takes this opportunity to do a little bit of snooping around. While Victor Jr. here is distracted, Bruce looks over some of the information laid out on the desk, trying to directly find any type of link between everything happening here and what happened to Matches Malone, in which, going on to read a file just on the desk, it is a file specifically about ancient microorganisms. And Bruce goes on to hypothesize inside of his head, maybe the question isn't more so about where the bacterium that killed Matches Malone came from, but when. All while this is happening, Bruce is snooping around, using his detective skills. Suddenly, Victor Jr. in the background starts to shift and change into something disgustingly horrifying. As he goes on to say, yes, the ice did save me. They told me it wouldn't hurt. They told me when I woke up, the world would be a better place. But the ice, it's not what they thought. Not at all. I felt everything, every moment, in the pain. My God, the way ice grinds and twists. The ice isn't grace, it's fury, it's reckoning. Of course, Bruce Wayne finally putting two and two together, realizing that whatever happened to Matches Malone and whatever is happening here are connected, and that Victor Jr. is in the center of it all. But it seems like for Bruce to get this information, he had to put himself right in the middle of the lion's den, as we see the full new transformation of Victor Jr., this universe's Mr. Freeze, shifted and changed into his true form, a creature almost beyond human recognition. This new creature going on to say, the ice births monsters, just like me, now to the land of ice we go, grabbing Batman himself and slowly infecting him with whatever illness or terminal disease and condition that this absolute Mr. Freeze now has. Which is a crazy twist, but one that we don't get to see fully explored here, as this video and issue comes to a close. If you have enjoyed, leave a like, or subscribe if you're new and want to see more content just like this. As always, this was AJ here at The Hero Informer, and thank you for watching.